Hello everyone and welcome to this week's video. This week, after finishing my sketchbook the previous week, I thought it'd be really good to finally break in my Strathmore mixed media sketchbook. I got this quite a while ago in a shop closing down sale, and this was massively marked down, as you can see. I only got this for £6, which I was very excited about, but it's on a very similar price point to the Mossery sketchbooks. Now the Mossery sketchbook is one that you do have to import, but I've really enjoyed using the paper. But comparing the paper quality, I will have to admit that the Strathmore paper does feel a little bit thicker and appears to be holding up watercolours much better. But that's for a future review when I actually finish this sketchbook, and we'll be able to have a proper look through. And that's what I'll also be doing with the Mossery sketchbook as well. Now, at a price point of about £18 to £21, depending on where you get these sketchbooks from, this seems to be quite a high price point for a sketchbook. And if I'm honest, it really is. If this was on, because this was on sale, was the only reason why I got it. Otherwise, I would not have actually forked money out to be able to get it. Now the Mossery sketchbooks I picked up a while ago using a discount code, so I actually only got those for about £18 each, and that was with shipping. I believe it came from Malaysia, I think. I can't remember, it was about a year and a half ago that I bought them now. The Mossery sketchbooks, they have that customization to them, and I've been wanting one for a while, so when I came to a little bit of money, I treated myself to them, and that was a treat, because £20 for a sketchbook, that essentially you're going to be having a lot of development of ideas. It's not going to be finalized products, because the whole idea of a sketchbook is to develop and train ideas to become to a finalized product. It's a bit of a high price point, but then again, it is something about the paper in particular that can encourage you to draw. I find expensive sketchbooks to be quite intimidating, and what I mean by this is that you've spent so much money on this sketchbook that when you're filling it up, you're wanting it to be your best work. It can be have a sort of contradiction to it, because you're not showing your workings out because you want to savor every little bit of this paper as much as possible. That can intimidate a person to not actually work in a sketchbook. Now, since my favourite mixed media sketchbook unfortunately has been discontinued, which was the Cachette Daler-Rowney mixed media paper, I absolutely adored those sketchbooks. Unfortunately, they are discontinued, so I don't have those sketchbooks anymore, which makes me very sad. I have been searching for the perfect replacement for that sketchbook. It was the right mix of medium that I could use markers on without it bleeding too much through. Now, if you are going to be using markers, as always, I would recommend using either Bristol board or using actual marker paper. Marker paper, unfortunately for me, just isn't thick enough. I don't like it at all. I will be doing a video on that in the future as to why I really dislike marker paper. But it is going to give your markers the best out of it. It is going to give the most beautiful quality for any alcohol markers that you are using, simply because the paper is built for that. I'm not too sure on the process, but feeling the paper itself, it has this sort of like waxy feeling to it, so that when you are using alcohol markers, it doesn't bleed through. Now, unfortunately, if you are going to be using alcohol markers in any type of paper, whether or not it is sketchbook paper or whether or not it's mixed media, watercolor, whatever type of paper that you are going to be using, be prepared for bleed through. So my recommendation is you just put a piece of paper underneath, or be prepared for that back of that page to either not be usable, or you have to get creative with it in a way. And now I don't tend to use alcohol markers in a sketchbook as much, unless I'm doing very light washes. If I'm going to be doing a bit of layering, then I know that the next page is going to be a little bit useless in terms of like being able to actually work on. So if you are going to be using alcohol markers, this does deal with alcohol markers pretty well. You are going to get bleed through, so don't be expecting it to, just because it's an expensive sketchbook, that you are not going to be getting bleed through on that end. So I'm going to be comparing this in a way to the Mossery sketchbook. Now, the Mossery sketchbook I've had a little bit longer, the mixed media paper. However, if you're using watercolors in it, unfortunately the paper buckles like there is no tomorrow. And this is sort of disappointing in a way, because mixed media can handle a lot of different materials. And in the past, especially when I had my cachette mixed media paper, I would not experience the same buckling, and it's fairly disappointing considering the sketchbook is £20. Now, in this piece in particular, I thought I'm gonna go all out. So this is just a character design for a pirate elf, which is in the Salty Sailors campaign, one of the D&D campaigns that I run. So I thought it'd be a really good idea to try and use a little bit of mixed media, some alcohol markers, some pencils, and some watercolor. This is a really good way to be able to test the paper as much as it can be. As much as I hate to say this, I really like this paper. It is really, really nice to use, and it's got such a nice smooth quality to it as well. Like, I mean, even looking through the sketchbook, like, the paper is just so thick and it's such high quality that in a sense it is worth it. However, I'm going to be very hesitant about doing process pieces in here. I'm going to be very hesitant about using the paper because it is so expensive. You know, like, yes, I paid £6 for this paper, but £20 for a sketchbook is a lot of money. The best way to actually get around this, if you want a decent sketchbook with paper that is going to be suited for all your needs, whether or not it's cartridge paper, mixed media paper, watercolor paper, is to actually make your own sketchbook. In the Discord, we've had a few conversations talking about sketchbooks and like what's the best ones to use. Now, 9 times out of 10, I will just get a sketchbook that's got cartridge paper because I'm not afraid to be messy in that sketchbook, and I tend to not really spend more than £10 on a sketchbook. And I know a lot of people will be very surprised to hear this, but if I'm going to be spending pages of experimentation, trying out different things, sketching, doing process things, and trying to understand how different equipment works, or basically just doing study pieces, I'm not going to want to use the highest quality sketchbook because there's going to be pages and more pages of workings out. And it's not necessarily that the most expensive piece of equipment in the entire world is going to make your art magically better. It doesn't work that way. However, I will say from a point of view is, yes, cheap art supplies will get you so far, but there's something different about working on higher quality art supplies. So, is it worth it? In terms of a sketchbook, if you want to do workings out, or if you want to go through and do a whole process piece, like maybe you wanted to do some study work, I wouldn't recommend this. I would tell you to get a cheaper sketchbook with some cartridge paper and go absolutely nuts. If you want to use some different types of paper, there is some fantastic alternatives out there. Heck, there's even a Strathmore book that you can buy. I'm looking here on Amazon at the moment. You can buy the mixed media paper itself, just not in terms of the book. You can, instead of having the journal style sketchbook, you can have a sketchbook that has the wire, it's spiral bound, sorry. And this is the one thing that I didn't like about this, is how it was bound, mainly because I really like the paper to move a little bit, if that makes any sense, when I'm drawing, and it just feels very restricted in this style of sketchbook. It's me finishing off the drawing with some cute stickers, but overall this is a really nice sketchbook. I probably may in the future invest in them, especially when comparing them to the Mossery sketchbook. The Mossery, yes, it does have some beautiful customization but the paper can sometimes be a little bit to desired, especially when you're trying to work with watercolors. Whereas this, from my experimentations, just over doing this piece and from the last few days of working in it, it works really nicely with all materials. So here is the final looks of the piece that I worked in, and as you can see, the back of the paper with the alcohol markers, it does have bleed through, so be prepared for that to happen with your markers, especially if you're quite heavy handed. If you want to do a lot of layering, you're going to get that on that paper. So my suggestion, as always, is maybe use the paper behind it, but you can see there is next to no buckling on this paper, and that is absolutely fantastic. So it's worth it, but if you can, get a cheaper sketchbook. Like, they're expensive. The price point can be very high. I hope that this video has been somewhat helpful to those who may be thinking about getting the Strathmore sketchbook. Like I said, my suggestion would be best to make your own. I think you get a lot more use out of it. Here's a bit of fan art that you guys have tagged me in. You've all done such wonderful work over the last few weeks, and I always get so excited to see what you do. I hope you always have a wonderful day. Keep drawing, love what you do, and as always, folks, stay creative.